Okay, good. So today's session is about how to conduct literature review using SciSpace. Okay. Uh, Now, my name is Arpit. I'm working as a senior product manager at SciSpace. I have built SciSpace from ground up, right? And I've overseen product execution for most loved products of SciSpace like Copilot, Literature Review, and the most recent one, which is AI Agent. Okay, so now we'll discuss doing literature review via a non-agentic approach, right? Now we'll first understand how do we do it. We'll see some examples on SciSpace website, and then we'll come back and discuss, what is lacking in the non-agentic approach and how does agentic approach solve those problems, right? So we'll take this query, okay, and we will look at the literature review tool, okay, in standard, high quality, and deep review. These are the three different modes in the literature review tool, which gives you different types of outputs for the same query. So we'll look at those. Okay, okay, just let me miss this. Go back to this. Okay, so what I've done is I've taken this query, okay, and I've done uh, literature review in standard, then we have high quality, and then finally we have deep review mode, right? So I'll explain you what you see on screen and what are the difference between each of the modes, right? So as soon as you do a literature review query based on any topic, what you get is a short insight, which is based on top 5 paper results, which you have gotten here, right? Now you can choose to change it to top 10 as well, okay, which will give you a larger insight, which will have more cited papers. Now you can see all these cited papers as well. On hovering of on which you'll know which paper has been cited. You can click and go to that paper leaf page as well, right? Below you see all the results you would have gotten for the given research question, sorted by relevance. You can change the sorting order. uh, by default you get insights, but what I've done here is I've added a bunch of columns myself. So uh, so this table analyzes each of these paper against all the given columns, and it extracts out information and so shows in this particular set for each of the paper, right? Now if you want, you can add more uh, columns here. Okay, as soon as you add it, it will start extracting information uh, for that particular added column against each of the papers. And you can also choose to add a custom column where you can name the column and then you can give custom instruction on what information to extract and how it should be shown, right? Yeah. So this is basically uh, standard mode. Apart from this, you have a bunch of filter options. You can export the table as well. And I think you can export the insights as well, right? So these are the basic things, basic features, which allows you to do a basic literature review and compare all the papers which are sorted by relevance based on different parameters that you can add by using add column feature. Okay. Now coming to the high quality mode. So there is a very little difference between a standard and a high quality. Here, if you see, you have again papers and 10 papers option. The insight which is generated here is slightly larger, right? So it's well written and it uses a higher model for writing this insight. So you will find this insight better compared to the standard one, right? Apart from that, all the values that are extracted, if you just compare it on a high level, you know, you will, by looking at itself, you'll see that, okay, this is a very concise version and this is a much more detailed version, right? Again, here we have used a higher model. So this will give you a better, understanding of individual criteria or parameters added against each of the papers. Apart from that, all the other features that are there in standard are also there in high quality as well, right? So these are the difference between standard and high quality. Now, when we come to deep review, there are major differences in deep review compared to what we have seen in standard and high quality. Now we'll see that. Okay, so we'll come to deep review. Now I'll just minimize this. Okay, so if you see here, again, we have a insight kind of thing here, right? But it looks slightly different. And again, we have a exact same table here as well. Uh, right. So what are the difference? We'll see that. So if I go up here, and here there's an option of see all steps. So if I click here, you'll see that when I gave the query, it actually asked me a follow-up question, right? Now, this was a very basic query, and based on the query, the agent or the literature review asked me that do you want to add all these details or do you want to consider these details in your query as well, right? So it understands the query, and if it feels that the query can have more detail to give me better results, it will ask me or suggest me to add those details, right? So here for quickly running it, I've just mentioned all the above. So just add all the above questions or parameters which you are asking for in the query, right? So what it did was it considered all the parameters and then started you know doing searches, right? So now here what is different? In high quality and standard, we used to take just one this query and take that query and used to find research papers that, okay, what are the research paper that match this particular query? In deep review, what we are doing is we are constructing multiple queries out of that base query base, and also based on whatever things you ask to include in the query. So we have constructed multiple queries, and then we do parallel searches across all the queries to find almost 3x to 4x more papers, right? So here you would have found maybe 100 papers or so. If I go down around 100 papers, here I think it's around 15 to 20x more papers in deep review. So if you see here, there are 1750 papers, right? So it expands the search so that you as a user don't miss out on any relevant papers that you would have missed because the query word was not transformed, or you did not take multiple directions for finding the paper, right? Okay. So now it transforms the query, it finds all these papers, and then, you know, it again. So now it also does this thing where it traverses to all the citations and references of all the found papers and then tries to find, more relevant papers, right? So it does another level of, searching for the papers after it has found uh, papers from the transformed queries. So if it found more papers, then, all the papers are taken, they are filtered and they are sorted again by relevance. And once that is done, it generates a very, big report and putting different sections regarding the analysis based on the research question, right? So it has abstract, introduction, scope, uh, methodology, screening papers, results, critical analysis. So a lot of important sections that you would want in a research report, right? Now, these sections are fixed. These are not going to change based on your query. So when you give a research question, the report is going to get generated with these sections only. There cannot be addition of sections or removal of sections, right? But this report is very comprehensive compared to what we saw in standard and high quality, right? So this is a very detailed analysis that has been done, right? So that's the overall difference basically between standard high quality and deep review, literature review, right? Okay, so I'll just go back, close this. Okay, so coming back to the presentation, I'll again go full screen. uh, okay, so I showed you how to do literature review via non-agentic approach, where if you do a query, uh, it will give you results based on whatever topics or subjects you have mentioned in the query or your research question. and it won't do things more than that. That's it, right? And even the report that is generated, it is very templated, right? You cannot add sections in the report based on the instructions you give, or you cannot remove sections, right? So you cannot customize that, right? And that's where agentic comes in, where you can do much more things in agentic which currently you're not able to do in a non-agentic approach, right? So I've just mentioned few limitations here. We'll go through all of these. So give outputs in a particular file format. So if you say, let's say, if you want to output in Word format or a PDF format or any other, file format, you cannot do that. You cannot give that instruction in non-agentic approach, right? If you want to include a specific section, you cannot do that, right? If you want to search papers from a specific, database or data source, or let's say a particular journal website, you cannot do that in non-agentic approach, right? uh, let's say you got results for insight and you got the list of papers. Now, let's say if you want to do a follow-up task or a follow-up query on top of it, you cannot do that in non-agentic approach, right? So basically, all these problems we have tried solving in the agentic approach. And how have we done that? We'll now look at that. Okay. Okay. So we go to the next slide. Okay. So here, what I have tried doing is, we earlier did a query in literature review tool based on this research question, right? So I've just taken this topic or this research question only, and I've tried expanding it, adding more details to it, so that uh, we can see what all different uh, criterias or parameters the agentic approach of literature review can handle, or the AI agent can handle, right? So again, using the same topic, I expanded it, and I mentioned identify and review recent and interesting theoretical developments in dark matter and dark energy. So this was the topic. Okay. I mentioned focus on peer review research. I've mentioned I want papers published after 2020. You have to look into the PubMed database. Now, here I can also mention any specific website, let's say Science Direct, I can mention that. Or any website which is less known as well, I can mention that. So it will look at that as well, right? Now, I've again tried creating more topical complexity in the query by mentioning, few more details, which is here, right? Now, this is basically how I'm trying to frame a research question and trying to find a research paper, find a set of research paper, right? And I've mentioned a bunch of criterias like year, database. I can also mention citations count, limit, and things like that, right? Now, this is the research question. But to test few more things, what I've done is I've also added this section, this part in the main query, which I'm going to send to the AI agent, which is based on whatever results you found in using this research question or research query. You have to take that and create a research report. Now, here I've mentioned that it has to be 1500. Now, if you would have given this instruction 1500 words in non-agentic approach, it would not have followed that, right? So we'll test this. I've mentioned that, I need an analysis of strengths and limitations. That's something I've mentioned. Current consensus, open challenges, future research directions. And I've also mentioned that I want it in Word format, right? Now you can also try and mention, so I've just taken few examples. You can try and mention more things and see if the agent follows it, right? But for now, we'll take this simple example and then we'll see, how much of it agent is following, right? So what I did was I took the complete query and I posted in the AI agent, right? So now we look at the execution for it. Okay, I'll again go back. Okay. Okay, cool. So, okay. So as you can see, I've just posted it here, right? Everything that I wanted to execute, not just literature review, but also a creation of, report on top of it. And there were a lot of specific things that I wanted in the reports. I've mentioned all of that and I executed it, right? Now, let's see all the different parameters which are here. Okay, so this is topic. We'll not focus on topic. Uh, Okay, so peer-reviewed research, paper published after 2020, and PubMed. So if you come back here and then you try and see, it did search on SciSpace, right? And it did search on PubMed, right? So because I mentioned PubMed, the agent understood it that, okay, I need to look at this particular database, and it did searches. Now, for doing search on PubMed, it also took your research question or query, and then it modified the query to match uh, the query structure for PubMed search, as you can see, right? And it also transformed the query into multiple different queries so it does not miss out on paper. And it ran different queries on PubMed, right? So that you get a comprehensive list of papers. Now, for each of the queries, if you want to see what papers you would have gotten, you can just click it, and it will show you all the papers with their abstract, right? And you can also access the PDF as well, right? Similarly, if I click the other ones, you'll also find papers there, right? So it did a PubMed search, and then it combined all the results and then sorted by relevance in the final re-ranked results, right? So it did that, and then it also told you that, okay, I found so many papers from SciSpace, so many papers from PubMed, and then I combined and re-ranked them. And like I mentioned, I want papers after 2020. It also did that, right? And it has clearly mentioned it here as well, right? I also mentioned that I need a report which should be 1500 words, and it also created that. So we'll look at the report as well, and we'll see what all sections were covered in that. And it did that. A report was generated. Okay. It added few columns as well to the final table that it thought, because I mentioned in the query all these details, it kind of added that, right? Key findings and contributions, limitations and challenges, theoretical framework. So these were part of, the research question which I had mentioned, and that's why it has added it. So now I can, review and compare all these papers against all the parameters which I had mentioned in the research question. Okay. Now, coming down, we'll look at the report once. Okay, so now it has generated the report. Now, if you see, the report has been generated in .md format, right? But I asked for a Word format report in the query, if you see, right? Formatted as Microsoft Word. But if you look at here, in the final, output, the same report is also there in docx format. Now, the preview is not available here, but if you download it, you know, you can use it. So this report is in Word format. If you would have told that I need it in PDF format as well, it would have given you in both the formats, right? So that's the power of agent, right? It can do things that, a non-agentic tool cannot do, right? Uh, okay. So let's look at the report. Now, I had mentioned that I want 1500 word research report, strengths and limitations, diagnostic analysis, open challenges, future research directions, current consensus. Let's look at the report. Okay. So diagnostic analysis is there. Conclusion is there. Okay. If I go to conclusion, okay, future research directions are there. Critical open challenges are there, right? Uh, Yeah, so basically all the things are there. So now I manually reviewed it, but based on the query, it identified I wanted all these things, and it has also mentioned it here, right? See, so length is over 1500, 1592. Okay. The target was 1500, which I had given. The format was Microsoft Word. Uh, Title is given, year is there, and introduction, particle-based theories. Conclusion has open challenges, future research direction. So it kind of summarized that, okay, you gave me this instruction, you gave me these query, you wanted all of these things to be done, and I have done that, and this is the proof. So it mentions at the end that I have done these things, so you can go and verify, right? I also mentioned peer-reviewed papers, so it has also done that, right? It included peer review papers, right? Good. So yeah, so this is how the agentic approach is different than non-agentic. It allows you to do a lot more things, which otherwise you won't be able to do in a non-agentic approach, because you would be limited by things that we have built as a tool. Here, the agent decides that, I can take different directions, I can do different things, and, it does it. Okay, we go back to the slide. Cool. So I go full screen again. Okay, so now I've just summarized uh, when you're trying to do a literature review using SciSpace's AI agent, what are the core things you should consider or keep in mind while doing it, right? Now, step one is when you're framing a query. Again, the obvious thing is you'll have to come up with a research question. So that is there. That's the first step. Second is you, if you are not specific about which databases should be looked at, it's fine to not mention anything. SciSpace will itself decide that. They'll look at SciSpace database, archive, Google Scholar, so all the different databases that the agent feels is important and should be looked at. But if you want specific databases to be included or added, you can also mention that. So you can mention that as well in your query. You can mention the inclusion and exclusion criteria. It can be topic based, it can be year based, can be citation, or anything else based on which the research papers should be filtered and shown. Then you can mention in the final report what sections should be included. In the sections, what subsection should be included. Do you need a table? Do you need, an image? Do you need some analysis to be part of the report? You can mention all of that, right? You can mention about the word count. You can mention about the tone. So all these things you can mention about the structure of the report, which was otherwise not possible in a non-agentic approach, because we discussed, right? Uh, it was based on a template and all the sections were fixed, where you cannot add or remove sections, right? And then you can also mention your desired output, whether it has to be a PDF, Word, or any other format. Now, even if you have not mentioned your desired output, you can go back and click on export, and there are a bunch of options, and you can choose PDF or Word or MD format, whatever you like, right? But if the format is something that is not very common, you should mention it so that you get the output in that particular format, right? So that's the first step. You frame your query for an agent that includes, a lot of different things that was earlier not possible in, typical search, non-agentic search or literature review tools, right? Now, step two is once you have constructed a query and you submitted the query and you found the output, you got the output, it's possible that you might have missed some things, right? Now, agent has this ability where you can just go and ask a follow-up question, uh, which would be, something that has to be done on top of the output, or there can be an instruction which will allow you to modify the output that you have already gotten. Let's say, you created a report and there were a bunch of sections, but you remembered that, okay, I have not mentioned this section and I need this section in the report. You can just ask as a follow, which was not possible in traditional literature review tools that we earlier had, right? So you can do that. You can ask follow-up question, and you can ask multiple follow-up question. You can review the output. You can keep modifying it as follow-up question. So that is a ability which, the agent has. Right? Now, once you are satisfied, again, you can, export the desired output in any of the given formats, or, you know, we have a SciSpace library as well, where you can just save those research papers in the library so that you can access it for future, right? You can, in the library, you can create very specific folders, name them, and put all your papers that you have found in that particular folder, and then you can access it later as well, right? So it allows you to organize the papers and the research that you have found, right? So this is overall, how you use the agentic approach using SciSpace Agent, and you do literature reviews.